Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Lily and this is She. An exciting conversation we have tonight. We are talking about workplace relationships. There are so many things to think about when we're thinking about navigating workplace relationships. I've got two amazing guests on set. I've got Helen Mwangi Ndirango. She is a HR consultant and a career goals and productivity coach. We'll be talking more about that. To my immediate right, I have Mary Mutano Gitari. You are a PR consultant, founder and CEO of Brandspark PR. Karibuni.
Thank you.
So happy to have you guys. You're looking amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. As we start, I want to talk about 7 types of office friendships. And I know it's just going to evolve into the conversation and you can give experiences of what you do at your places of work. So there are co-workers. Co-workers are people who don't necessarily interact. We're just in the office. We make things happen. We get work done. Yeah. And then there are team members. Team members, now you sort of have to have a good rapport because you're working on a project together. And then there is work friends. Work friends are, you know, you've gotten a bit closer with your work, with your co-workers. And then also work friends is like, we are friends who work together. There's also that level of we are very close. And I think that's going to be a very important relationship to think about. And then there is manager and direct reporting, manager and the people who report. And then there is office spouse. Well, office spouse, here where I was looking at it, is about just people who are very close in the workplace, not necessarily married, but you're very close and it's a platonic male-female friendship. Yeah, and then there is mentor-mentee, and then there is life friends, you know, people who you interact even outside of the workplace. Which one stands out for you, Mary?
Obviously, the one you giggled at. My husband and I work together, and we've been working together for some time now. Yeah. So we are co-founders of the business, and it's been exciting because very many people don't think it's a feasible relationship. Yes. And for some reason, it has worked, maybe because he's in advertising and that's his line, and I'm in PR and sort of have my own thing going on. Yeah. So we don't necessarily cross on each other's disciplines, but at the same time, we find that we're able to complement each other. Yes. So he's a starter, I'm a finisher, you know. So I find that for me, it actually works. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Nell, is it a good idea for me to have an office friend opposite gender? Of course, there's always sometimes things get steamy and, and cross over to the other side, you know? What would you say as an HR?
I would say that you've got to be very careful because first and foremost in the workplace, sometimes there's a spirit of everyone for himself, God for us all. And so there are people who would do certain things, who would drive you maybe to a certain relationship because they want to gain a certain thing for themselves. Oh, wow. So you have to be able to know why are you getting into this level of closeness. Is it someone who would say, you would say probably you have what is called a symbiotic relationship. Somehow your jobs interconnect, and because of the skills that you have, you're forced to work closely, and as a result, you become very good friends. Yeah. But also, you have got to make sure you're very clear on that friendship, because sometimes that translates to people saying, oh, you people are having an affair, or you people are this, and then now every other, exactly, office husband and that kind of thing. And then eventually you now have to sort of wear a new hat of always defending yourself. No, there's nothing going on, you know, and it can be very, very exhausting because every time there's something good happening, you probably find automatically you're like, oh, let me get a piece of cake for my colleague. So something you did very innocently translates into there's an office affair. Now, even worse is if your male colleague is actually either married or has a fiancé and all, and then maybe that fiancé has a close friend inside, and now the information translates differently. Yeah. So I think what I would say is you need to have boundaries. Friendships in the workplace is good because remember you spend 80% of your time in the office. Yes. So you cannot thrive in a solo space. You have to try and find a way to be good friends with people, but also draw the line so that again you're not now oversharing your private life and then you say one thing and then it ends up sabotaging the rest of, the rest of your career. And people then again look at, allow me to just introduce something still in that conversation.
Please do.
For example, if the male person is probably a senior level or has what I call a seat at the decision table, as a lady, people will often think that you didn't put in the work, that you got a favor to get that promotion, even when you actually put in the work, and at the back of your mind, you're very much aware that you did put in the work. So it will be like, oh, you got a favor, it was a favor, you did 1, 2, 3 things to get the favor. So the boundaries need to be there, but friendships are equally important because you can't walk that journey alone. Yeah.
It's very tricky because human beings are, fallible. We're not going to have perfect boundaries, and you have to have a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to say, this is my friend, but I'm not going to, or have a decision in their favor, so to speak.
Yes.
So I don't know. What tips do you guys have?
I would say DTR. DTR is define the relationship.
Yeah.
So we're in this because I am good at this. In fact, let me give you a very practical example. So I worked with a colleague who was in finance and I was in HR, and I used to process payroll. So what happened is we happen to be the people who are very good in, Excel.
Yeah.
So if I got stuck on an Excel formula, he would be my go-to person. If he got stuck. So many times over, he would either be at my desk or I'm at his desk because we are trying to solve this problem and succeed. And then we used to also have a lot of aha moments like, oh, by the way, over the weekend, I discovered this new formula. I have got to show it to you. So in that whole process, there are people who probably misunderstood what was going on when there was really nothing, you know. So DTR is very important. Define, you're my colleague, we work together because of this and this. But at the end of the day, we also need to accept that everybody has a different perception. Are we going to be bothered by what everyone is saying? Let our actions speak louder than the words, because sometimes you're telling people, no, this is not happening. People are saying a totally different thing.
And when you mentioned about oversharing, I remember seeing it on somebody's, on a certain website, that not everyone is your friend, so don't tell people your private things. But the biggest challenge I have is, Aki, sometimes the story is just so juicy, and there's an office mate I have chemistry with. That's the other thing. There are people you just have chemistry
from
with.
day one, like high school or campus.
Anel looks like she doesn't struggle with it. Do you?
Not quite.
I can't wait to hear this question. Yes.
Have you ever felt like you just overshared? And what do you do after that?
Yeah, I feel like I need to go hide. You know that meme for, you just feel like you want to first of all go and hide, and then you ask, how do I take all that back? So there's a lot of remorse and regret. So you want to kind of back step. You take a step back into your shell. And then you ask yourself, now what are my next steps? I'm hearing as if Nelly saying we can go back to dividing the relationship and say, I think I was really in a vulnerable state that day when I overshared. I still would like this to be my private story. If I'm ever to say it, I'd like it to come from me. Please respect my need for privacy, and like going back and having an honest conversation with the person is still a clever thing to do after you've hidden under your covers for a few days.
That's very true.
I mean, God forbid that they've already shared the information.
I think there's one thing, there's probably a step I missed out, and I would probably want to mention that and then come back to how do we then firefight this thing that we've already done. Is oversharing can tend to happen a lot of times when you're just a new employee. You haven't actually understood the culture, the way we do things around here. So it's very important. Why? Because there are people whose work is, let's get to know the newbie, let's get to know the new joinee, let's get to know what their secrets are. And then they're sort of the person, like the central contact person who now says, oh, I have juice for you. So let's tell you this, let's tell you this. So I think one of the very important things is when you get into an organization, take time to study, take a step back. If you can, let your qualifications and your skills speak for you first before the rest. Don't be so quick to, you know, volunteer on certain projects and all. If, for example, you're not a very social person, volunteering actually helps because you get to somehow get to see the other side of people. But again, you have got to do it with a lot of wisdom. Get to see how people react. And, you know, body language really lies. You know, you can watch how people speak around, maybe say Lillian, around Mary, and then you can actually tell, you know, you somehow now figure it out. Okay, maybe I need to tread very carefully. And then, of course, there's usually the very charismatic person in the office. Sort of like, this is a person who helps decisions move. If you're trying to get something done and you know, you meet this person, somehow things move faster. So it's important to just get to know who are the people you should be talking to, study the organization, get to know. There's always that office gossip who never quite keeps the secret. Now, say for example, you didn't know who the office gossip was.
And you overshared with
Yes, you already overshared. And one of the
cool.
ways to know that your secret is out, people start to look at you in a funny way.
Oh, wow.
Or they will start to use what I call sarcastic language to communicate something as you pass. So as you pass somewhere, maybe there's a common corridor everyone uses. So you will hear a statement, and by the time you're internalizing it, you start to realize that sounds like something I said to this one person. So the mature way to go about it, I would say, is have a nice conversation with the person. And if you can, even try and have the conversation out of the office premises. People usually have a certain defense or facade on them because we are in the office. We don't want another side of us to be seen or that kind of thing. So if it means let's go for a cup of coffee or let's go for lunch, then now from there, because you're in a neutral ground, you can have the conversation. And you should actually be free to tell the person, I realized that I said this to you, but unfortunately, it seems that this information got to other people and I shared this in confidence with you. I am not happy about it. While we cannot take it back, I would appreciate it if in future you can at least respect the conversation or ask, is this something I need to hold in confidence or is it something that can be shared?
I like
that. Yeah, I think that's something that's very, very important. But then again, also, work from both extremes. Both extremes being you can still have that conversation and then this person goes and translates that conversation into something else. So if it's if it's translated, then I think it's you make your peace and now know in future, then this is probably not the person you should be sharing information like that with.
Great. I like what you said, taking some time to think, collect yourself. And when you come back, because I know you've managed people, I would like us to talk about issues of sexual harassment, exchanging sexual favors for promotions. And I know those, and also navigating partnerships. So those people who are in partnership and they fall out, do you take each other to court or what do you do? So guys, we are going for a short break. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
This Thursday on Historia, Tamaduni na Sanaa.
The female body has stood a lot of pain, hurt, love, and those things, when I think of them, they just give me the inspiration to work.
Also part of the show, the story of conservation by discovery from Uvumbuzi, Africa.
You can tell even from the engagements after these discovery journeys, people want to be involved.
That's on Hitasa this Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on Family TV.
Welcome back. This is She, and my name is Lily. I'm with Mary and Helen, and we are talking about workplace relationships. As we speak, please send your feedback to 20316 or 0786 316 316. That's our WhatsApp line, and 20316 is our SMS line. And I'm with Mary Gitari and Helen Dirango. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us. And we are talking about workplace relationships. Just before we went for the break, we were talking about oversharing and you know, just that tightrope of how to deal with people in the workplace. And Mary was telling me something about personalities.
Yes, one of the things that Helen was talking about is that when you enter a new office, you need to take a step back,
True.
assess everybody and ask yourself, who is my friend and who is not?
Yes.
And one of the ways that you can do that is just using a normal personality test. So there are usually 4 key personalities. There's the introverts and the extroverts.
Yes.
So introverts, you find that they're called melancholies, or you find phlegmatics, very laid-back people, and then there's sanguines and there's cholerics. So those are the people who they don't care what is happening, they have to get the project done. Like your emotions aside, they have no diplomacy when it comes to asking you to get things done. And it's easy for you to be offended if you don't know about the personalities. And people usually have a mix, but there's those 4. And for me, it's been very important to map that out and then ask myself, and those diplomatic people and feelings matter and emotions are important, but I find that when I meet cholerics, I have to put that aside and just be
focus on the work.
The work is what matters, and we have to get it done. Then you'll find that it's very easy to anger a melancholy. So somebody who is introverted, who doesn't share easily, and you never know when you've crossed them, they just have this resting beach face. You know, so you're not sure if they woke up on the wrong side of bed or it's you who's messed their day up. You will never know. So you have to now again ask yourself, it's not about me, it's about this person's personality. And the other thing that came to my mind is a lot of us now are either working from home or we're working in SME based organizations where the teams are so small. If you're not getting along with one person and there are only 3 of you, you're sunk.
The company is falling apart.
You're sunk. You feel like you need to quit. But one of the things I would encourage somebody who is in a very tight space like that is to look for coaches and just talk through some of those situations and say, I feel like I'm not able to get along with my boss. They could be either a choleric or on the opposite side where they're like me, a phlegmatic, who is like laissez-faire but at the same time wants results. You know. So how do you navigate the demands?
I feel like you come in between phleg and choleric because sometimes the job just needs to be done and you have that position. So the position impacts your personality.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing I really wanted us to talk about is intimate relations. So now there's this cutthroat. I mean, I feel like our society now has just become cutthroat. I don't care. Even your mother, you know, if let's say your mother is in the village, even your mother in the village, as long as you're sending money home,
she just needs the cash.
You know, just send me the money and you're going to be my favorite kid. I know it's not like that for all families, but there's that thing in society. We love people who succeeded. But in such a society, what's the harm?
Many times over people will say, I didn't have a choice. But the truth be told, we always have a choice. I always say that once you're an adult, you have the choice every day to make the right decisions or the wrong decisions. You also have the choice to ask for help where need, but often we don't want to ask for help because it's a sign of weakness, even though that's not really it. However, you will find that sometimes there's also the part where if you don't have a strong value system, it's very easy to fall into the pressure. So you're hanging out with this group of ladies in the office, and they're probably right just in the middle of the organization. And maybe their pay scale is not what we would call an optimum pay scale that would probably have us parking some really nice cars out there. But they're driving these really nice cars. And you are probably really struggling somewhere. And you end up asking, so what's the trick? You know, kuliendaje, what's going on? Do you want to share the trick here and there? And so some of them will be very honest. Others will take time because they don't want to be known what's happening, because maybe there's something going on with a manager somewhere and they have decided that they need to be very, very discreet, because if someone knows, God forbid if the manager is married and then the wife knows, there's always a risk element. So there are those who will say, even me, I want this because we are living in what we call a microwave generation. We want things really, you know, instant. We want things instant. This water, if I want it hot, I can quickly put it in the microwave, or I can decide to put it in the sufuria, heat it. So of course the microwave is faster. 30 seconds and water is hot and I can take. So if picking the idea from my girlfriends is going to help me move faster, it's going to help me help my sister and my brother, sometimes you find that the moral part of it is basically just shelved because of the problem, the desperation, the problems at home, they need to sort it out. And when mom or dad are not asking where the money is, they just say, I mean, where the money is coming from. They're like, hey, our daughter is doing very well,
very
but they don't know the backstory because obviously they knew the backstory. Condemnation, everything, you know, everything changes.
Sometimes I feel like they won't even condemn you.
They'll
turn a blind eye.
But you know, on a personal level, I think there are two ways to look at it. If you're being forced and coerced, you know, by your senior, it could be a woman, by the way, who is coercing her lower level, or I don't know, whatever, who's asking for the favors, then that is something else. That is not consensual. And you have to be able to know the difference so that you understand that you're, sometimes we land really big jobs and we think that our lives are that job. You know, our whole identity is wrapped in that job. The fact that you say, I work for this big organization. And it's very hard when you've put that in your mind to now step away from a forceful, I think I'd call it sexual violence situation. And, you know, it starts from just even the words that people speak to you, and in a suggestive way, trying to say that, you know, we are in this environment, but there's more that I want from you. So I think HR does have policies. If you work in a very organized corporation, those are things you should report immediately, because you don't want to wait until the very end, and then now you're crying tears, crocodile tears as they're called, because you're like, but when did you notice this was happening? You should have come to us at the beginning. But now, on the other end, when you choose to actually go and decide that this is going to be my instant microwave, you know, access to my big car, my big salary, or whatever it is my goals are, the other thing that will haunt you, and it will haunt you, is your ability to deliver. You might now be promoted and you get all that money, and then you have to move organizations. But guess what? You will never have that confidence that I did this by myself. So I think the hardest thing for me, and as a woman, has always been to map out my career from a 10-year, you know, like looking forward. So from where I am right now, think 10 years forward. And I remember my mom always used to tell me, will this matter in 5 years? Or how will this affect you in 5 years? Because those instant decisions that we make, those are the things that can either make or break our lives, especially when they are negative.
And as we wind up, I wanted us to talk about sexual harassment. So maybe someone is flirting with you, and then, you know, it crosses over slowly. At which point is someone violating your boundaries as a woman?
Most organizations have policies against sexual harassment. They also have outlined what sexual harassment is, but I can tell you for sure the list is never exhaustive. And sometimes it's usually the person just says, oh, a nice handwriting, or nice something. So, you know, sometimes as women, we like the validation and the praise. And so you quickly go ahead and say, then before you realize, this person is very, what we call very smooth. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already in the trap. But then there's that person who realizes, I don't want to find myself here. Why? Because maybe there's a colleague who in passing told you, be very careful with that person, but they didn't tell you more. So that word keeps, you know, ringing in your mind, and you know. But what I would say is this: the point where you'd actually know that there's a problem or this person is crossing the line is, it goes against what you stand for, and you start to feel uncomfortable. This person probably starts to say things that only people very, you know, in your close circle would either say, or maybe your spouse, your fiance, your boyfriend, you know. Then there are certain touches, and then maybe like in a group, example, office party, and someone, because they insist because they are under the influence, they can probably just say anything. But in the end, it's a very unkind statement that will probably be spoken all through, or they just touch you in a very uncomfortable way, or in areas of your body that are not supposed, that are out of bound. So at that point, then you already know. And when you're telling the person, don't touch me, they're like, but last time we were okay. The last time I said this to you.
Or
you know?
why did you wear this outfit?
Yes, exactly.
You know, for women, I think we have a challenge with that because sometimes.
Yes.
And I don't know, in this day and age, I'm finding the clothes are becoming tighter and tighter and tighter.
And shorter.
And shorter. Yes. And there's a lot of focus on, you know, slaying and all that. All these things have effects, so to speak. And you see, if somebody then blames you, how do you go back and sort of assess where you really are at? Because I feel like that's that delicate balance. That's the question, really. Because somebody can accuse you of inviting this upon yourself, and I would never have if you had. But that's a blame game, and it calls for the entire society to like grow up. But but the most important thing to remember is if you're being violated in any way, and if you feel unsafe, you should talk to somebody.
Speak up. Very, very important.
Always.
Also, in my own experience, we still haven't reached that point where women make the same as men in most organizations for the same work. What do men do that we should copy?
One I would start with, we tend to remain in a humble position. You are praised that you did something good, but you say, no, it was just my job, you know. We need to start acknowledging our achievements, because when you ask your fellow colleague who is a man to stand there and tell and showcase his achievements, he'll probably even exaggerate things he has not done. But we are like, no, it was normal, you know, it was just, I was just doing my job. Start acknowledging that, because it's a form of validating yourself. It's also acknowledging that you've put in the work to, you know, you've put in the work to get recognized for what you're doing. And then it's also important to have support groups. There's a saying that says that women, we are our own worst enemies, but I don't think that that's always the case. If you reach out to the right people, I say create what I call either accountability partners or a mastermind group. Women you can fall back to, and you're either on the same level in terms of your thinking process, in terms of achieving, and even if you have someone who is achieving more, it's good because you're all building each other. And then I think also, this is very, very important, emotional intelligence, as in carry bags of it, bagfuls of it, because when you have emotional intelligence, you're going to avoid a lot of unnecessary problems in the workplace. But as well, also there's an element of self-awareness. You need to know yourself. What triggers you? What makes you happy? What triggers you in a negative light? And then how do you deal with that? So that when you see it from afar, it's very easy for you to react the right way. Because a lot of us, because we lack the self-awareness and the emotional intelligence, we end up blowing up on a situation or overreacting, while all you needed to say was, Lillian, I was not happy about how you handled the situation. So I would probably focus on those three. There are very many, but I think that those are very important. But as well, also put yourself out there. Stretch your limits. You know, don't just sit and say, I will only do what's in my JD, rather my job description. Do more, stretch yourself, and not just in the office, even out there, because then you get to discover how much more you can achieve, and you probably get to network more because of that. Yes.
I think my closing remarks is that we can be honest, and you can find an opportunity to speak to your boss and say, I'm considering asking you for a raise. What's your feedback on that? You know, I feel that for this position, if somebody else was running it, they would be earning more. How can I get to that level? Is there anything you need me to improve on? So as opposed to just like having those thoughts running in your mind, you're thinking, if a man was in this position, they should be earning more. You know, like be vocal. And actually you'll be fine. People are able to guide you and say, you should do ABC, go for this certification, do this other course, and you'll be able to earn X.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a wonderful conversation. This has been She. See you next week, same time, same place. Good night.